Hello guys, this is Movie Lover and welcome to this Movie Lover world. The movie begins with a man named Jamie, who used to work in an electronics store. He is quite handsome, so most of the girls are soon impressed by him. One day he is getting intimate with a girl of a store, but unfortunately the girl's phone falls down and her boyfriend, who is the owner of that store, gets a call, after which the owner of the store throws Jamie out of the store. That same night Jamie tells his family that he has been fired. Then his brother Josh, who was much richer than Jamie, talks about getting Jamie a job as a salesman in a pharmaceutical company. The next day we see Jamie in a company called Pfizer, where he was training. His training goes on like this for a few days, and finally, as soon as the training is over, he gets intimate with his boss, one who was training him. Next day Jamie meets with his head, who tells him that he is a fixed target to sell medicine, and after completing it he will get promotion because selling directly in any hospital was forbidden. That's why he used to request many doctors outside the hospital to prescribe Pfizer medicine to his patient. But Jamie fails to sell. He does not get any doctor who prescribes his medicine. The next day both of them go to a hospital which can keep samples of their medicine there, but the receptionist there does not allow it. Jamie uses his flirting skills to get permission from her, along with keeping his samples. He picks up the samples of his competitors and puts them in the dust bin, and for some days he does the same. One evening we see Jamie in his head, where the head reveals that Jamie is still far behind from his target. In the same restaurant there was a Dr. Dr. Knight and a man named Trey. Actually Jamie and his head had come for him. Then the head tells that if he somehow convinced Dr. Knight, then the rest of the doctors will also prescribe Pfizer's medicine. At the same time he also tells about Trey that actually he was a competitor of Jamie. Jamie used to put his medicine in the dustbin. Next day Jamie somehow convinces Dr. Knight. For a few days he also gives Jamie entry to the hospital for intern, after which Knight goes to see one of his patients. Jamie is also with him. The name of that patient was Maggie, who has a deadly disease called Parkinson's, and she has come for the same medicine. At the same time she also had a wound on her breast, so she shows her breasts to Dr. Knight, but Jamie was also watching her. That's why when Jamie comes out, Maggie hits him with her purse and asks him to apologize. But here too Jamie starts flirting with her and asks her name, but Maggie leaves without telling him anything. On reaching home Jamie takes Maggie's contact number from the hospital's receptionist. Meanwhile Josh comes to his house and stays there. Now because Jamie liked Maggie, that's why somehow he calls Maggie and invites her for coffee. Maggie also used to work in a coffee cafe, so she asks him to come there. When both of them were talking in the cafe, Maggie says, "I don't want to be as a serious relationship." On that Jamie says that he also don't want that kind of relationship. Maggie says, "Why are we wasting our time in talks?" After which Maggie takes him to her house and both gets intimate. In fact, Maggie does not like to come in any relationship, so she keeps getting intimate casually. Sometimes they starts getting intimate in her cafe or somewhere in the street. Next day Jamie was putting samples in the dustbin, and then Trey comes there and punch him in his stomach. Actually Trey knew everything. The next day Jamie again goes to the hospital to keep his samples, but the receptionist there refuses him. Jamie again uses his flirting skills, but this time it doesn't work. Then Jamie goes to Maggie's house, where both of them talk. During this Maggie mentions a Viagra, which Jamie's company was about to sell. But Jamie didn't know anything about it. Both spend time together for a few days. When Jamie was going to his house, Maggie tells him that "You don't call me again." She said this because Jamie was now getting serious in the relationship, and Maggie does not like this at all, as she has a serious disease. That is why she does not want to be a burden on her partner by getting into a relationship. Same night Jamie, his head and Josh were going once, and on the way Jamie asks his head about Viagra, on which his head says that his company is going to sell Viagra. On this Jamie says that he will only sell Viagra from now because no one else can do this work better than him. His head also gives permission to him. After arriving at the bar, Jamie goes to Trey and Dr. Knight, who were at the same bar. Trey and Jamie were about to clash again, but the doctor sends Trey away. After this, Jamie asks the doctor for his medicine, as well as he tells about a lady that if the doctor obeys Jamie, then Jamie will give a lady to the doctor to be intimate. The doctor agrees to this and agrees to prescribe Viagra from Jamie's company. After coming home, Jamie calls Maggie, and without talking much, Maggie cuts the call. Jamie is not happy with this, so he goes to Maggie's house the next day, where he learns that she is going to Canada to get some medicine with the old age people. Jamie is also on his insistence and stays there the whole night. When Maggie comes back the next morning, she sees Jamie and understands that he has been there all night. Maggie gets a little impressed by this, and then both get intimate in Maggie's house. From the next day, Jamie gets involved in the sale of Viagra because his product was very good in the technique of Jamie's sale too. That's why he sells a lot of Viagra. Jamie and Maggie again spend time together for a few days. One day, Maggie's health condition became bad and her medicine was also running out. That's why she has a lot of trouble. Jamie comes to his house in the night. When Maggie asks him, "Why do you want to stay with me?" Actually, Maggie felt that he was living with her only to give sympathy. Meanwhile, the two get into an argument, and as Jamie is leaving the house, a glass falls down from Maggie's hand. Hearing her voice, Jamie comes back and supports him. A few days later, Jamie has to go to Chicago for a meeting, so he takes Maggie with him. In the same meeting, Maggie meets a lady who understands that she too has Parkinson's disease, so she asks him to come to a conference. When Maggie reaches there, she sees people like her who had Parkinson's disease was sharing their experience. Maggie enjoys a lot here because the rest of the patients were very positive. As they haven't any disease, all of them were happy and enjoying their life. That's why Maggie also started liking it very much there. On the other hand, Jamie ends his meeting and reaches the conference looking for Maggie. There he meets a man who asks him if your wife also has Parkinson's. Jamie says that his girlfriend has the disease. Then he asks Jamie to leave his girlfriend because this disease takes away everything from the people. Jamie gets a little tense hearing this and studies about Parkinson. As soon as he comes home from the next day, he takes Maggie with him and goes to different cities to get different treatment and therapy. Jamie was unable to focus on his work and his money was also running out. That's why Maggie breaks up with him, because she didn't want Jamie to have problems due to her. Jamie concentrates on his job. After a few days, one day he goes to a restaurant where he meets Maggie, but she leaves without talking much to Jamie. Jamie actually came there to meet his head. When he and Jamie were talking, we learned that Jamie is now promoted, and that's why the company is now giving him a flat in Chicago. Jamie then comes home and starts packing. But then he finds a tape recorder containing some of his and Maggie's memories. After watching the tape recording, he decides that he will stay with Maggie under any circumstances, so the very next day he comes to his cafe, but Maggie did not come to the job that day. On asking the owner of that cafe, he tells that Maggie is going to take Canadian medicine with some old age people, so Jamie immediately goes to Maggie's house. But by then the bus is left. Still, he looks for that bus on the road going to Canada, and after some time he finds it. He starts following her and somehow makes the bus stop, after which he tells all his feeling to Maggie. Maggie gets emotional with this, but she was not ready to be with Jamie, but Jamie tries again and finally Maggie agrees. Jamie even leaves the flat in Chicago for her and stays with him forever. In the last scene of the movie, it has shown that sometimes we do not get what we thought, instead we get what we haven't thought. We meet a lot of people, but there is only one who changes our lives. And with this movie ends. Movie Lover will meet you again with new story till take care.